Hi, Dolores. How's it going?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing, David?
I am pretty good. I have to be honest, I'm very excited and really honored to be able to speak with you. I really want to say thank you for allowing us this opportunity to just sit down with you and learn a little bit about you. I have a few things that I want to kind of put out there before we begin. And obviously, this is we want to highlight the beautiful aspects of Nuevo Mexico and its people. I see that you're sporting our jersey, and not a lot of people know that that's one of our new sponsors here for the team. So New Mexico True, I think you're a perfect example of what we're trying to build here in New Mexico. You were born here, and obviously everyone's so proud of you, of everything that you've done throughout your life. I want to express my deepest of gratitude to you for being a voice of change. Your organizing and leadership is incredibly meaningful to me because my parents, a lot of my family worked in agriculture. The struggle for farm worker rights brought needed urgency and visibility, and for parents like mine, it underscored a sense of dignity and respect. I believe a measurement of success is the number of lives we impact. In your case, your legacy is inspiring. So by sharing a bit of your story, I hope viewers, especially the younger generation, feel inspired and empowered to use their voice. You have roots here in New Mexico, and so let's begin with those ties to this beautiful state and its amazing, diverse gente. Is that okay with you?
Oh, fine. And by the way, I just want to mention to you that Cesar Chavez's middle name, I don't know if you know this or not, was Estrada, okay?
Yeah, no, yeah, and I was talking to my parents too last night about, hey guys, I'm actually gonna be talking to Dolores Huerta. What do you guys have any questions that you guys might have? And we did touch on Cesar Chavez's middle name, and he's like, obviously, I don't know if this is the case for you, but where I'm from, I have a large extended family, which is Rodriguez, and so almost every Rodriguez in Salinas says they're related to me. And so I imagine every Chavez and Estrada would probably want to say that they're related to Cesar Chavez. But that's cool. Yeah, I always felt, I didn't know that till later on. And so when I learned that, it's funny how you learn some of those things and then you become empowered just by identifying with somebody that kind of looks like you, has the same name as you, and then you can say, oh, maybe I can do something like that too. So thank.
My mother was a New Mexico Chavez, okay?
Oh, okay.
His family were Arizona Chavezes, and Cesar's mother, Juana Estrada, who, by the way, was a very brilliant woman. She never had a chance to read or write, but she was so smart and could remember everything. She passed away. She was close to 100 years old when she passed away, but her mind was just clear and lucid and sharp right up to the day that she passed away.
That's amazing to hear. I think one of the things that I really want to touch on is women in our culture, and we'll get into that a little bit later down the line, just because I know your mom was such a big influence, and my mom was the biggest influence. And I can share a couple stories with you if we have the time, but I'm excited to get into it to learn more about your mom. But let's touch a little bit about your early upbringing here in New Mexico, right? You were born here, but then you moved to California. But for me, I have friends that are from New Mexico, and unlike any other place, I feel like there's a sense of pride just saying that you're from here. For you, do you have that same, when you say you were born in New Mexico, how does that make you feel?
Oh, absolutely. Wherever I travel, whether it's New York City or Chicago or Texas, I like to brag the fact that I'm from New Mexico. And in fact, what I say to people is everybody needs to go to New Mexico to get humanized, okay? To get humanized.
I love that. And I think, do you still have family here? I imagine you do.
Oh, yes, I have family everywhere in Las Cruces. The St. John's are my cousins over there. And of course, they're in Las Vegas and Santa Fe, Albuquerque. I have cousins everywhere throughout New Mexico.
That's beautiful. So I know one of the things that I've noticed throughout this whole city and everywhere we go, because we've done holiday tours where we go out to different parts of the state and provide essential goods through the foundation that we have here. And there's murals of you all over the place. And so you're like I said, I think it's amazing that we get to talk to you today, and it's really cool that not only are you leaving a legacy in the work that you've done, but obviously you're leaving a legacy with all the family that you have around the state, and I imagine throughout the country.
That's the great thing about us Latinos. We have primos everywhere.
That's so we're very, very similar. The next thing I want to get into is kind of, let's talk about how would you describe La Gente de Nuevo Mexico? Like, again, I think they're a rare breed in terms of just how prideful they are, but what is your description of La Gente de Nuevo Mexico?
Well, people from New Mexico are very welcoming. They're very helpful. They're very supportive. They greet strangers even though they don't know them, and they're always polite. And I think that is what makes a difference, because often we see that people, they meet each other or they see each other and they don't even acknowledge each other. And I think that's what makes New Mexico so different, because people really acknowledge you as a person. They treat you as a human being, and they're very helpful if you need any kind of help. So when you're in New Mexico, you feel like you're family. Even if you don't have any particular family at that moment, they're with you. But this is just this wonderful spirit of humanity, and just knowing that we are all one human race, and to be able to greet another person, knowing that that person was created by God just like you were. So it's just a beautiful feeling. You always feel safe. When you're in New Mexico, you don't feel like there's any kind of threat. Even if people don't know you at that moment, you just feel, like I said before, like you're welcome.
Yeah, so I've lived throughout the whole country, and I will say one of the things that has stayed with me is the people here really care about one another. This state is spread out, and so the needs are huge. But I think one thing that I've noticed is that there's always people willing to help. The people that are here doing the work, I'm always inspired, because everywhere you look, and I've been very fortunate to work with our foundation, there's for every need, there's a foundation that's trying to address those disparities and those gaps. And so I think it speaks volumes of what New Mexicans want to do for this state. And I think we're heading in the right direction, especially with the work that we're doing here in the foundation. But let's get a little bit more into what we consider the land of enchantment. New Mexico is full of majestic and breathtaking landscapes. Is there a place here that has a deep meaning or inspires you?
Well, of course, I was born in northern New Mexico, in Dawson, which is close to Raton. And all of northern New Mexico, I think, is really, as you say, breathtaking in terms of the landscapes that are there. We know that Las Vegas, for instance, is higher than Denver. And I think a lot of people don't know that. And when you see all of that red clay out there, and the pinon trees, actually, when you just breathe the air, I was very sickly when I was a child, and because we came to California when I was 6 years old, and so my mother sent me back to New Mexico one summer to live with my dad. And you know what? After being there for that whole summer, I never got sick again. I mean, it was just something about the climate. And some people say maybe it's all of the minerals. I don't know what it is, but it's a healing climate. And when I talk about healing, it's not just the weather, but I think it's the people, because people are very spiritual. And I'm going to use the word, it's not my tongue, corny, but I'm going to use the word loving. So yeah. I think that is kind of the ambiente, the atmosphere that you find in New Mexico.
Yeah, I think you touch on a very important aspect of nature and really appreciating it for what it is. And I think even Albuquerque, we have the sandias, we have the Rio, and sometimes people have lived here their whole lives and have never really experienced it. And so I think that's just one aspect of the whole holistic human, that sometimes we do need to be connected with nature. And obviously, like you said, as a young kid, you came out here, you probably connected with the side of New Mexico, the nature aspect of it. And obviously, I do think it has healing properties, and we just have to go out there, right? They're a drive away, right? The Rio is right down the river here, right down the road here, but sometimes transportation is a factor. But if I could get anybody to really go out there and try to connect with nature, I really do think it does have a healing aspect, like you mentioned.
When you're in New Mexico, you never feel like a stranger. People just welcome you and you don't feel like you're an outsider. And I think a lot of times when you're in the big cities like Los Angeles, then everybody seems like a stranger and everybody is treated like a stranger. And that's really unfortunate that happens, because you don't get that kind of a community feeling that you have in New Mexico, because of course Los Angeles is so big, and the big cities like New York City and all these other cities. But even it's interesting because we could even talk about Texas, okay? Mm-hmm. And as we know, in Texas, there's a lot of Latinos in Texas. But even when you go to Texas, you don't get that same kind of a welcoming feeling that people get in New Mexico.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So kind of, I think it's all tied to, I think you see maybe New Mexico as your homeland, and I want to kind of get into your mother's influence. I imagine she was born here, or was she born in Mexico?
No, she was born in Dawson also. Yeah. In fact, my grandparents were born in New Mexico also. Both. So my grandmother was Clarita St. John, was born in Las Cruces. Wow. And my grandfather, Herculano Chavez, was born in Carrizozo.
Wow. So like that's one thing that I feel like is very, very different from California too. I meet people here that have been here for generations, right? And I feel like in California, it's more of a lot of people, recent migrants, obviously with the agriculture out there. And so that's one thing that I've learned here that's very, very different in New Mexico than California. People have been here for generations, and it's obviously sometimes that idea that, they didn't cross the border crossed them, right? And so that's really, I really inspired to learn how long people have been here, because, it's beautiful to see, because again, they've been here for so long, and so they have that strong sense of pride and identity for this land.
And I think that's another great thing about New Mexico, that we do have not only the Hispanic influence, you have the Mexican influence because it was part of Mexico. And then we have all of the beautiful influence from the indigenous communities that live there. Our Native American populations are very much integrated in New Mexico. And so it's kind of like, you might say when you are in New Mexico, you feel like you are also, you are sitting in history, You are sitting in history when you are there.
I just wanted to just have closing comments, and just on behalf of the New Mexico United and the Somos Foundation, we are incredibly grateful for this opportunity to learn more about you, your resilience and spirit of lucha and reflection of this beautiful state and its people. You are someone we should all aspire to learn from. I'm personally grateful for your contribution to the visibility and the voice of hardworking farm workers like my parents. They grounded me with a sense of pride that comes from hard work, honest work, something I carry with me to this day, and I hope to pass on to players, students, and my own family. The fight for justicia is never over, and we'll continue to advocate for dignity and positive outcomes for all the gente of Nuevo Mexico and beyond. Gracias. Do you want to close this interview with any words that you want to say? I really do appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. I know you're a busy woman, and I'm just amazed at how sharp you still are. It's unreal. I hope that when I get to your age, I can be as live and so outspoken and still fighting for our people. And you are really, truly an inspiration to me. And I hope, like I said, the younger folks here that watch this are inspired by you as well.
Well, I'm sure you will be. And of course, I want to thank you very much. And thank you for having this great foundation, and that you're so strongly supporting all of the soccer players out there. And I guess there's just one more thing I forgot to mention. And we're also trying to get an immigration reform bill passed in the U.S. Congress. So that's also in the U.S. Senate. So we have a lot of work to do, especially for our Latino community. So I want to just ask people not to forget to send those emails. And the one thing that I always like to remind people is that we have the power. We have the power, even people do not have a high school education or a college education, that we can still make a difference by getting civically engaged and getting out there, helping good people get elected to office by home banking, knocking door to door, doing all of that important work. and of course, sending all those emails that we need you to send to get this great legislation passed. So I like to say, and I like to ask people, and you could maybe do this, when they do the soccer games, ask them to do this chant. We say, who's got the power? And we say, we've got the power. What kind of power? People power. All right.
All right. I will pass that. I will pass that message on. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. And I hope that when you come to New Mexico, you bring your grandchildren and your kids to a game, and we'll have a special section just for you to watch the game. It's really something special here happening in New Mexico. And if you get a chance, please come out and watch a game.
Well, that's going to be my first game my first trip out of California is going to be to go to New Mexico. So we'll definitely give you a call when I get there. I may not be able to bring my grandchildren with me, but I'm sure I'm going to find some cousins out there in New Mexico that are playing soccer. And if they're not, we're going to encourage them to do that. Okay, so si se puede. Muchas gracias, and thank you for all your great contributions. Thank you.
Gracias. Adiós.
Adiós. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.